They spend their days with their heads in the clouds. They're the daredevils, the thrill seekers, the adrenaline addicts of the construction world. They'll work anywhere a scaffold or crane can't reach, as long as it's up.
I like to climb. That's probably what attracts me to this job more than anything. I pretty much spend all my time up in the air and screw nuts and bolts together.
I used to get butterflies when I went over the edge. I don't get that anymore.
You get used to it. A lot of people think we're mad.
There's quite a few moving parts in a helicopter, so when it's your day, it's your day. It's the way I look at it.
Any working at height is going to have some inherent danger there. So with the correct training, the correct procedures, we can minimise that.
With the development of new technologies and light, flexible materials, taller structures are being built in record time all over the world. The only limits are the laws of physics or the laws of government.
We can build them up to 2,000 feet. That's the height restriction that the FAA and the FCC has put on any structure in the United States.
The H.C. Jeffries Company built this digital television tower near Corpus Christi, Texas. At 300 meters, it's almost as tall as the Chrysler Building in New York City. It's been called the fastest tall tower in Texas.
It was designed specifically to be erected by helicopter, which was a first for tall towers. While there have been other types of structures put up with helicopters, self-supporting towers and television antennas, there's never been a tall tower erected in its entirety by helicopter.
The Erickson S-64F air crane is the helicopter of choice for a job like this. In the 1960s, the Erickson air crane was known as the Sikorsky Sky Crane. During the Vietnam War, it was used to lift heavy loads and move equipment, vehicles, and supplies. One of their best pilots has been flying the heavy lift helicopter for over 30 years.
In my lifetime, I've done enough lattice or steel poles to go from Los Angeles to New York and halfway back already. It's many, many miles of power line that I've been involved in.
In 1976, Larry Pravacek's most difficult job was the CN Tower in Toronto. The air crane topped off the 460-meter-tall concrete tower by lifting 56 separate pieces.
This took a period of about 31 days. We would do 3 or 4 pieces a day, and then they would have to bolt approximately 1,000 bolts per splice. So some days we wouldn't fly at all because they were still bolting it up. The last piece actually was about 30 or 35 feet tall, and we had to put it up on a particular time because they had invited all the people to come watch. And it happened to be about a 30-knot wind up there. That was a very difficult set, but it worked. We were able to do it.
The CN Tower may have been the tallest of Pravacek's career, but the fastest was still to come. 10th, 2000. It's early morning at the tower site near Corpus Christi, Texas. For 2.5 weeks, the crew from the H.C. Jeffries Tower Company has erected the base for a 300-meter tall tower.
We build the base up to the first guy wire with a crane, regular land crane, and from that point on we use a helicopter.
Once the Erickson air crane is on site, Larry Pravacek holds a safety briefing with the ground crew and tower hands.
Rearranging all this up here. All right? Okay, everybody should have a hard hat and goggles on when we're working underneath here, hooking up in the tower.
The people from Ericsson's are so good. The helicopter pilots we have are just fantastic. They're the best pilots in the world, so you're working with tremendous people.
We go through the procedure that those people would have to do in case we would have an emergency. All right, let's climb up that tower. Let's get this going. Be safe. Woo!
It takes the tower hands up to an hour to climb to the top.
Get yourself on film, man.
We're running big wrenches, 3/4-inch ratchets all day long, big heavy nuts and bolts, and it really builds you up and pumps you up. It's pretty physical. Sometimes we are up there for maybe 12, 18 hours at a stretch, and it gets pretty hard sometimes.
They spend their day attaching tower sections and guy wires with bolts and cables. The tower hands are hooked onto the structure to prevent falls.
There's no second chances for mistakes, and you just have to really be aware of everything you're doing all the time because of the danger involved.
Worker safety has only come to the forefront of the construction industry in the last 25 years. In the 1920s, at the peak of skyscraper construction, safety gear and training were non-existent.
When I first started, I learned from older guys, and I didn't wear a safety belt for probably 10 years. And I found that they were really missing out because a safety belt makes your life so much easier. You can have your hands free, where before those guys trying to climb with the pipe wrench and the ladder with another, I mean, but I understand that probably there were hardly any fatalities on the Empire State Building job. So that tells me that your survival instinct takes care of you with or without a safety belt. But with the safety belt, they could have made their lives a lot easier.
The lead tower hand is in constant communication with the ground crew and pilots.
You want it right there? That'll work.
When they signal the pilot to start coming up with it, we got to make sure that nothing's tangled or twisted in the wrong spot, so the section will hang level when it takes off. When the section gets vertical, make sure there's no mud on the bottom that would large chunks fall and hit somebody. And you want a smooth connection when it gets up top. The pilot, given the go-ahead, he takes off with the section, and it takes him just a matter of seconds to get it to the top. Once everything's looking good, he'll move in over the structure and set it down.
We're out here a ways, but we'll be all right.
In this particular case, the tower sections are relatively easy to put on, number one. But number two is, even though you're 600 feet, 800 feet in the air, you don't really look at the ground. You look at the connection. So you never focus on the ground, so it's just the same as if you were putting it on a two-story building. Once you get used to that, it's relatively easy.
The air crane's maximum load is 11,000 kilograms. The helicopter creates a rotor wash, a vortex of downward air circling in the direction of the turning blades. This makes the load spin. Erickson has patented an anti-rotation device that counteracts the rotor wash and stabilizes the load. The air crane holds 5,000 liters of fuel in massive twin outboard tanks.
It is so powerful that it can hover as long as there's fuel available for the engines. So in this particular case, we have ferry tanks on some of our sky cranes that they could actually hover for 4 hours.
It's pretty intimidating seeing a huge helicopter inches above you, holding a gigantic load and in high winds, and it's pretty unreal. But the more you're around it, the more you become accustomed to it, and you just can focus on what you're supposed to be doing.
A large job like the Corpus Christi Tower requires extra crew for the air crane.
In this particular job, since it was such a tall tower, and to have good visibility, we kept 2 pilots in the front and 1 pilot in the back. And then the pilot in the back would actually land the piece on the tower.
4 feet, 2 feet, 1 foot.
From the ground to the tower, each piece takes just minutes to position.
Aircraft. Aircraft lift.
We have built in special guides that guide it into its final position so that the bolt holes actually line up.
They know what they're doing down to the inch. You know, they're that precise. You wouldn't think that something that huge, carrying that much weight, could be so precise, but they are. They're that good. You don't want to get it up there and be a half of a bolt hole off. And then what? You know, it could be a big problem.
It's a little crooked pin. We're off by a half inch.
Another piece of the tower is bolted into place. The fastest tall tower in Texas continues to grow. Unlike the CN Tower or any other tall building, this transmission tower uses guy wires to keep it steady, anchored to the ground in concrete foundations.
There's 7 guy levels on the tower, total of 8 guy wires at each anchor, because the top has 6 wires instead of 3.
Trying to hook a guy wire to the helicopter under the turbulent rotor downwash is a tough challenge for the ground crew.
When he lifts up and moves over us, he puts off up to about a 70-mile-an-hour wind off to the side until he gets right over the top of you. So you got to really be prepared, or it will knock you down.
It's pretty much just nonstop hard work all day for him. I'm glad I'm on the tower. Plus, it's cooler up in the air.
Pretty good. You're 20 over, 30 over.
One of the hardest parts was actually landing the guy wires, because they got to be, 1,200 feet long, and to muscle those things in with the men working on it became very, very difficult.
Yeah, I know, and I can't turn that sucker. I know. Let's, you're 3 foot over? 2 foot, 1 foot? We can't turn it. Let me take it out here and lift it straight up. Maybe I'll spin. Let it go.
You were afraid that you were going to pinch somebody's finger or something like that, so it made it quite interesting.
Come on down easy. Keep coming. Keep coming. Keep coming. Looking good. Good, she's on. Well, that's how it was supposed to be done.
With the guy wire turnbuckle securely in place, a winch pulls the wire until the slack is taken up. The ground crew bolts it to the foundation. As the ground crew works on the foundation, the helicopter is already on the move with the next guy wire.
You ready for the other one right away?
They get down and back so fast that by the time we got the bolts half tight, they're ready to come back up. I can't move from one leg fast enough to the next to set the wires, and usually that would take a half a day. It might take us 10 minutes with the helicopter.
After 8 days of construction, the tower is 275 meters tall. The next piece is the pedestal array, which will hold the antennas.
Probably the most interesting part of this job was the pedestal array, and that was a new thing for me, and that was probably one of the most nervous moments of my life.
The pedestal array, or candelabra, weighs 34,000 kilograms. 3 boxcar-sized pieces are supported by 19-meter-long arms that jut out from the tower.
Originally, we had talked about doing it in one lift, and once we pieced it together and tested it out with a crane on the ground, we decided it'd be a lot easier to do it in individual lifts.
Because the support arms were positioned on an angle, the helicopter had to continuously hover, holding the support arms in place until the tower hands had completely secured them. With the recent boom in demand for cellular phone, television, and radio frequencies, more than 1,000 of these tall towers will be built around the United States. The Corpus Christi Tower is designed to hold 3 antennas. Only one will be installed at this time. Weighing 8,000 kilograms, it's 19 meters long, almost as long as the air crane itself. It's so big, the crew has to bring in a conventional crane to lift it off the ground.
When we set the antenna up here, usually it would take a week or 2 of rigging, and it's really the most dangerous part, usually setting the antenna up on top. We had it up there in 6 minutes with the chopper. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Despite the long hours and the physical strain, Mark Henning couldn't imagine doing anything else.
I feel so good coming off the tower because of the fact that you're back on the ground again in one piece, and it's just kind of exhilarating sometimes. It really gets your blood pumping.
It would take 2 to 3 months to build this 300-meter tower using a conventional crane. With the heavy lift capacity of the air crane, the tower was built in only 11 days. With their experience in Corpus Christi, Texas, engineers say the next tall tower can be built in half that time.